So, you've watched my video and then decided it was time to make the switch to a mechanical keyboard. Great! But now what? See, now comes the tricky part. Lots of questions arise, some simple like what keyboard and or switch should I actually get, assuming you didn't get one already, to more complex ones like to backlight or not to backlight. Okay, maybe not so much that one, but still you get what I mean. I've got my notes. But luckily, we're back with another more in-depth guide to make these questions even easier to answer. First off, let's assume you've already bought your keyboard and it's been sitting at your desk. You use it every day. Things are getting pretty serious between you two. Maybe a little bit quicker than you had hoped. See, soon enough it's time for maintenance, it's time to change some stuff. We'll get onto that later. But for now, I think it's a good idea to help you get to know your keyboard, since I'd assume you guys already bought your keyboard and you know what is in it, like you know what switch it is and what brand and all that. But as I was writing this, I was getting messages from people asking me to help them identify what switch is already in their keyboard, so I figured this would be a good way to kind of square that away. So, first off, you can start off by identifying what type of switch you have. This is easiest done by identifying the stem. On Cherry MX switches, these will be the same shape but different colors. If you're not entirely sure what I mean by that, you can click on the annotation above to bring you to my last video on this. That'll explain it better. But the SteamFirst switch is primarily what differentiates it from others. There are a variety of different switches and different variants, some of which, starting with the most popular, Cherry MX, these come in a wide variety of variants and they all have a different feel. There are also Topers, Alps, and less common ones like the new Razer ones that are manufactured by Kale that are compatible with Cherry MX keycaps, which I'll also get onto later. The SteamFirst switch is the exposed bit that is connected to its own keycap. Typically, each switch will have its own keycaps unique to itself. There are some exceptions though, like the Razer ones that are manufactured by Kale that have stems that are compatible with pretty much every Cherry MX key switch. That was probably the most difficult part. Now things get a little bit simpler, voice crack. The next thing is identifying the size of your keyboard. There are full-size keyboards, then those are like the usual size ones with a number pad and even sometimes macro keys. Then there are 80% keyboards, also known as 10 keyless, like the ones I use, that don't have a number pad or macro keys, and sometimes not even like arrow keys or anything. Then there are some other fun sizes like 60%, also known as poker, and then some even smaller and bigger than that. Now let's talk about customization options. There are quite a few things you can do to customize your keyboard. One of the easiest and most common ways is with replacement keycaps, and this is entirely up to you to decide. Do you want to replace all your keycaps or just a few like I did? Even more so, do you want blank, printed, or even some of those weird 3D printed ones with weird designs and graphics on them? There are quite a few ways you could have them printed, either with letters or graphics printed on top, the most common way, completely blank, or ninja printed, which is just printing on the side facing you, making it look blank on top but still has a reference on the side in case you need to check on what keys you're pressing every once in a while. It happens, it's all good. But there are a few options here. First, I'd like to cover the types of plastic the caps are made of. The material of your keycaps can completely change how typing on your keyboard feels. First one being ABS. ABS is the most common type of plastic, and it's most likely what your keys on your keyboard are made of, the ones coming out of the box. They are the most readily available ones, since they are the most like versatile type of plastic. A lot of backlit keyboards might have these, like the Razer Black Widow Ultimates, I think, because you can print it like so it's transparent. But if you want a textured keycap, PBT is the plastic for you. These are fairly more expensive than the other two I'm going to cover. They feel great and are shine resistant, meaning it's more resistant to the oils on your hand, so that will prevent it from getting all gross and disgusting like most old keyboards tend to get. If you want your whole keyboard to be transparent and shine through the whole keycap, KBC is usually transparent, enabling, in my opinion, a very cheap, cheesy look. Though it does look pretty sweet on unlit keyboards, I would say. Enough of a long part. Even after you choose what types of keycap you want, how you want it printed, if at all, and what you want printed on them, now you have to choose how you want it printed if it's an option. First off, there's pad printing. This is the most common because of how cheap and easy to do it is. Though it does have some cons. With this method, the printing tends to wear fairly quickly, and you can feel where the printing was, and then when it starts to wear, it gets all gross and warped feeling, and it's disgusting. Then there are dye methods, which restrict you to any color darker than your keycap because of the way it's set. Though this one feels the nicest and looks pretty cool too, it also won't wear as fast as the other ones. This method doesn't look as nice, but a lot of keyboards may come with either this or pad printing due to how cheap and simple it is to produce. Now for the most expensive, double shot injection molding. This is by far the nicest quality printing compared to the other methods. It consists of 2 layers, 2 completely separate bits that don't have any noticeable texture but will never wear out. In my personal opinion, this is the way to go. Then there's laser etching. With this method, you can still feel the printing, but it won't wear nearly as fast and won't really feel as awkward as the other ones do, with more noticeable texture. If double injection isn't the option for you, this is probably one of the better ways to go, but it's, subjective. Then there are other more trivial things to take into account, like what color or colors you want, as well as what color printing, if that's an option. Then that's really simple to decide on because most places really only have the options for what color keycaps and what kind of material the caps are. So now you're ready to order your new keycaps. Great! There are a couple other things you should take into consideration before placing your order, unless you're into the whole paying double shipping thing, or like me, like to make double orders so you could feel a lot cooler than you are when 2 parcels arrive at the door. It was a dark time in my life. Anyway, one of the more important things to take into consideration is to buy some things to help with removing keycaps without damaging the keyboard. One of those things being a keycap puller. A wire one is preferred, though if one of those janky plastic ones that's available to you, that will suffice. Just please do not use a fork or knife or screwdriver or whatever you guys believe in. For the sake of whatever you guys believe in, do not do that. You risk damaging pretty much every part of your keyboard doing that. If you cannot buy a keycap puller, you can always improvise one out of a paper clip, Kanthal wire, or any other kind of bendy, movie, metally wire thing. Just nothing sticky and pointy that could break or bend or snap things. Another thing to think about are getting dampeners. Keyboard dampeners help reduce travel distance and help silence the clack of the keyboard, not the click. The clack is the sound it makes when you bottom out a key and the stem of the switch hits the inside of the switch casing, causing a clack sound. These are really useful if you like to bottom out your keys a lot or want a more quiet, comfortable experience. These can be removed at any time if you decide they're not for you, which is also great. There are a few options here, the most common being red and blue O-rings that go on the stem bit of your switch. The ones I use are from WASDkeyboards.com, and they come in 2 variants, red and blue, and they're made of industrial grade EPDM rubber. The blue ones, 40A-R, reduce travel by a little bit more than reds do, reducing travel by 0.4 millimeters. And the red ones, 40A-L, reduce travel by 0.2 millimeters and have a minimal change in key travel. Then there are other kinds, like soft landing pad, the ones Elite Keyboard sells. These are a little different shape and also fit around the center of your keyboard. And these are like little pads with holes in them that just kind of rest on. It's weird. They do work a little bit better in my opinion. I prefer the O-rings though, because it's kind of a pain. I always break the pads when I try to punch them off the pad thing. Okay, so now you've placed and received your order for keycaps and accessories and are ready to start pimping out your keyboard, so to speak. You should already have all your necessary tools for the job. To remove keycaps, it's as easy as pulling either side of your keycap puller under the existing cap and not the switch, then pulling straight up in a swift, firm motion until the cap comes up. If you're extremely paranoid, you can hold the switch down with a flathead screwdriver to ensure it doesn't come up with the switch. Oh, with the cap rather. This shouldn't be an issue with most modern keyboards because they're probably mounted to the metal plate instead of the PCB itself, but if not, then it's always good to take that extra bit of precaution. For some of the other keycaps like space, enter, shift, and caps lock, there could be a little stabilizer bar that can prove difficult for first-time users to remove. This is also pretty simple. After taking off the neighboring caps, Just put your puller on either side of the cap like before, but only pull up enough to get the keycap off the switch. Once you feel it release, do not keep pulling, as this could risk damaging the whole thing. Just find little pieces at either side of the stabilizer bar and pry them up with a flathead screwdriver, being careful not to break, stretch, or snap them. Then you're golden. At this point, most enthusiasts would recommend lubing certain parts of your keyboard, but I'm sure a lot of you won't be doing this. But in case you want to, I would recommend any sort of graphite-based lubricant like Bell Automotive 22-5-00277-8 1.5G graphite lubricant, link in the description below. You only need about a third the size of a screw head per bit. There will be a diagram of where to lube your keyboard on the post and SteamFirst. I didn't film that bit because I don't lube my keyboards. I don't really feel a need to. And when I do, it's only once every couple years or so. Keep that in mind. So now that you're all clean and lubed up, who writes these things? I'm gonna have to talk with somebody after this. But anyway, now that your keyboard is all clean and lubricated up, it's time to put your shiny new keycaps on. I would recommend before putting the keycaps on, maybe take a vacuum or a brush to your keyboard, just to make sure there's like any dust or hairs in it, depending on where you are. Personally, I have a cat who likes to go up on my desk and sleep on my keyboard, so there's always bits of hair in between the switches and stuff. So I just like to brush it out and vacuum it every time I take off my keycaps. So now that you've got all that done, you're ready to put your new keycaps on. There is only one way to do this, and that is to take either a diagram of your keyboard off the internet, or take one of your old keyboards and use it as a reference. And as far as putting your keycaps back on, it's as easy as just lining up the stem of your switch with the hole in the keycap and just tapping it down. If you're using dampeners, put the dampeners on the way that they're supposed to go on, and then just do the same thing. Put those pesky stabilizers back on, just do the opposite of what you did to take them off. Take the stabilizer bar, line it up with little plastic bits that they snap into, take a flathead screwdriver if your fingers are too fat like mine, and just snap it back into place. Make sure not to break anything, and then just press the space bar or whatever key is there down a couple times, make sure it stays. After that, maintenance is pretty easy. Just make sure to dust your keyboard and be careful not to spill stuff on it or let pets go to it. It's nice to lube it up every few months. I'd say around every 6 to 8 months. I do it every couple years, depending on how long I have my keyboard. This keyboard's a year old. I'm probably going to lube it, I think, April 6th when it turns 2 years old. But other than that, nah. So now, after all this, people may still be asking, what's the hoopla about mechanical keyboards to begin with? Can't they still game and type comfortably on a normal keyboard like a Windows basic one that came with my PC? The answer to that simply is yes, you can. Of course, actually my own mother prefers the feel of a normal keyboard to a mechanical keyboard. My PC setup was over at her house for a while last year, for whatever reason, and we had to set up both keyboards for them to use when I was gone. And it was weird, but everyone has their own taste, and that's fine. All I can say is, for me and lots of people I know, mechanical keyboards are more comfortable and the way to go for us. And it suits our taste more than that of a default type keyboard. I think for me, it's the shape of the keys and how my particular keyboard is shaped, because I like to tilt my wrist really weird when I type, and I also like the way that the switches feel in general. It makes it just easier for me to type overall. It's just more comfortable to type on. I like to bottom up my keys. I'm really heavy-handed, and it's just kind of odd for me typing on a normal keyboard, especially now that I'm using nothing but mechanical keyboards for the last like 3 years. Anyway, and then another thing people always ask me is what's the deal with the 10 keyless keyboard? Like, why do you need such a small keyboard? And my answer to that is simply because I like it. It works for me. And there's also a few ergonomic reasons behind it as well. When you're using a normal keyboard, your keyboard hands normally here, and your mouse hands like here somewhere. It's not parallel with each other, they're far apart. Your mouse hand tends to get strained and starts to hurt, and it's no good. But with the 10 keyless keyboard, my hands are close to each other, they're centered, and it reduces a lot of strain on one of my arms. That, and I don't need the number pad. I find it easier to just use the top row number keys, and it's really portable. I can just pop it in my laptop bag whenever I go somewhere. When I gotta go to my school's office or whatever, for whatever reason, I bring my laptop. I just pop this keyboard in my laptop bag and that's that. It's good to go. Lots of people who attend LAN events and tournaments and stuff prefer these types of keyboards because of their portability. In fact, one of my friends has the same PC case as me, and he took out his extra hard drive cage and like outfitted a part to put his keyboard. It's actually pretty sweet. But anyway, yeah. And then there are also like ridiculously small keyboards, like the 60% ones, even ones smaller than that I just find absurd to use for everyday stuff. But that's pretty much it. When it comes to all this stuff, it's basically down to personal preference. It's up to you to decide what you want to get, what switch you want to get, what keyboard you want to get, what kind of keycaps you want to put on it, all that kind of stuff. This is just kind of like a reference to make it a bit easier to, I guess, go through with that. This whole video was done basically assuming you know everything already and just want to replace your keycaps or replace something else on your keyboard. This will be it for this series and possibly for me on SteamFirst. I'm not really sure. But anyway, my name is Anthony from SteamFirst.com. Be sure to check out SteamFirst.com for the best news, reviews, videos, and content relevant to all things Valve and Steam. And I will probably see you guys again. Probably take a 50% chance, depending on how my school's going to be. But anyway, yeah. Bye, guys.